My name is Zara Kensington. I'm 31 years old, and until 8 months ago, I believed that if you built your life carefully enough, nothing really collapsed without warning. Not overnight. Not without signs. I work as a logistics coordinator for a regional distribution company in Ohio. My job is managing routes, deadlines, making sure everything lands exactly where it's supposed to. There's no room for guessing in what I do. If something goes wrong, it's because someone missed a detail. I don't miss details. My life reflects that. I rent a 2-bedroom townhouse about 15 minutes from work. It's quiet, clean, paid on time, mine. At least, it felt like mine. My boyfriend, Marcus Hale, is 27, charismatic in that effortless way that makes people lean in when he talks. He works in marketing for a boutique agency. Presentation is everything to him. How things look, how they feel, and how people perceive him. We'd been together a little over 2 years, living together for 8 months. The lease was in my name because I qualified alone. Marcus had some credit issues from his early 20s. Missed payments, inconsistent income, nothing catastrophic, just unstable. So he paid me a fixed amount each month for rent and utilities. On paper, we looked solid. In reality, Marcus needed emotional gravity. Everything had to orbit around how he felt. Not loud, not explosive in public, but constant. If a waiter forgot something, it was disrespect. If a friend didn't respond fast enough, it was intentional. I adjusted. I compensated. I told myself relationships required balance. 3 months ago, something shifted. He came home from work quieter than usual. No story about clients, no complaints, no energy. He set his keys down, dropped onto the kitchen chair, and just stared at the table. I remember standing there watching him, already running through possibilities in my head. "Marcus," I asked, "what's wrong?" He looked up slowly. His eyes were glossy, not dramatic, just unsettled. I messed up, he said. There's a specific tone people use when they're about to say something that changes everything. I heard it immediately. How? I asked. He hesitated. Then he said it. Elena is late. Not late for work. Late. For a second, everything in my head reorganized itself. Not emotionally, structurally. Timelines, consequences, variables. Elena was his ex-girlfriend. They had ended things before we got serious, but there had been overlap. Not officially, not in a way we ever fully defined. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't react the way people expect. Did she take a test? I asked. He nodded. Yeah, it's positive. Silence settled between us, thick but controlled. I could feel my future recalculating itself in real time. Financial adjustments, emotional fallout, relationship damage. What does she want to do? I asked. His expression shifted slightly. Relief, maybe, that I wasn't yelling. She doesn't want to keep it, he said quickly. She's not ready. Her family would freak out. It would mess up everything. I nodded once. Logical? Predictable? And? I asked. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing now. She looked into options, he said, but her insurance won't cover it discreetly. And she doesn't want anything traced back to her. That word again. Discreetly. How much? I asked. About $900, he said, for the procedure. There was a pause. Then he added, softer. I don't have it right now. Of course he didn't. I didn't hesitate. If that's what needs to happen, I'll cover it, I said. His shoulders dropped immediately, tension dissolving. Zara, thank you, he said, stepping closer. I transferred the money that night. $900. Memo line, medical. I even offered to go with him, or at least be available. He shook his head quickly. Elena doesn't want me there. She's going with her friend Morgan. It'll be easier that way. That was the first moment something didn't align, but I ignored it. Because at that point, I still believed we were operating as a team. The appointment was set for Thursday, 10:30 a.m. clinic about 40 minutes away. I adjusted my work calendar anyway, blocked off the morning, contingency planning. Thursday came. At 9:45, he texted, on the way with Morgan. At 11:50, done, she's okay, just tired. No call, no details, just done. I stared at that message longer than I should have. Is she okay? I texted back. Yeah, cramping. She's going to rest at Morgan's place. I offered to pick him up. No, it's fine, he replied. That entire day felt wrong. Not emotionally wrong, logistically wrong. I deal with systems for a living. Processes, documentation, outcomes. Medical procedures create records, receipts, prescriptions, something. That night, he came home around 7 p.m. He walked in like he had had a long day at work. No visible strain, no medication bag, no paperwork. He dropped his keys, kicked off his shoes, and asked what I wanted for dinner, like nothing had happened. I watched him for a second too long. How is she? I asked. He shrugged slightly. Sore. Doesn't want to talk about it. Fair enough. But over the next few days, nothing lined up. No follow-up appointment. No prescriptions. No change in his behavior beyond surface-level fatigue. I'm not saying every situation looks the same. I'm saying this felt rehearsed, and I don't ignore patterns. The real crack came a week later. He was in the shower. His phone lit up on the nightstand next to me. I wasn't snooping, but the screen turned on, and I saw the message from Morgan. Girl, I still cannot believe she just sent you the money like that. I didn't move immediately. I just stood there, staring at the screen, feeling something inside me settle. Not panic, not anger, clarity. Then I picked up the phone, and everything changed. His phone wasn't locked. Marcus never locked it. He used to say passwords made relationships feel suspicious, like we were protecting ourselves from each other instead of the world. I remembered thinking that was romantic once. Now it felt convenient. I opened the thread with Morgan. There was no mention of Elena crying, no clinic, no appointment, no recovery, no medical anything. Just messages, flights, hotel shares, beach outfits, screenshots of Miami restaurants. And then the line that made the entire room feel colder. Guess the baby scare worked out in your favor. I stood there holding the phone while the shower ran behind the bathroom door, steam curling under the frame like nothing was wrong. My heart didn't pound. That surprised me. I expected rage, shaking hands, maybe even tears. But what came over me was quieter than that. Cleaner. He had never needed money for Elena. There had been no abortion fund, no emergency, no complicated ex-girlfriend situation. He had looked me in the eyes and used the idea of a pregnancy to get $900 for a vacation. I scrolled further. Morgan had sent a breakdown. Flights, $312 each. Hotel share, $418. Then Marcus had written, Zara won't ask too many questions. She's practical like that. Practical. That word burned more than any insult could have, because he knew me. He knew exactly which part of me to use. Not my jealousy, not my insecurity, my responsibility. I put the phone back exactly where it had been. When Marcus came out of the shower, towel low on his hips, hair wet, he smiled like a man whose world was still perfectly intact. What do you want for dinner? He asked. I looked at him standing in my bedroom, water dripping onto my floor, and understood something with painful precision. This wasn't panic. This wasn't fear. This was calculation. Whatever you want, I said. He moved around the kitchen later like nothing had shifted, talking about some client at work, laughing at his own story, opening my fridge, using my plates. I watched him and felt the relationship separate from me in real time. Not loudly, not dramatically, just cleanly. I didn't confront him that night. That is probably the part people question. But I know men like Marcus when they're cornered. He would cry first, then blame Morgan, then say I violated his privacy, then turn the whole thing into a discussion about my lack of trust. I didn't want a scene. I wanted facts. Over the next 2 days, I gathered everything. I screenshotted the entire conversation between him and Morgan and emailed it to myself. I checked the transfer from my bank, $900 sent to Marcus Hale. Memo line, medical. Then I checked his email. I knew the password because we shared streaming accounts, and Marcus reused versions of the same password for everything. There was no clinic confirmation, no receipt, no discharge paperwork, no appointment reminder, nothing connected to Elena. What I did find was a booking confirmation for 4 round-trip tickets to Miami and a hotel reservation split between 4 names. Marcus, Morgan, 2 other friends. Total cost, $1,784. The booking date was Tuesday night, the night after he told me Elena was pregnant. So the timeline was painfully simple. Monday, Marcus told me his ex-girlfriend was pregnant. Tuesday night, he booked Miami. Thursday morning, he claimed the procedure was done. Friday, he was texting Morgan about poolside outfits and ocean view rooms. It was so clean, it almost looked professional. Almost. Saturday morning, he was in the living room watching reality TV. One ankle crossed over his knee, completely relaxed. I sat down across from him. He glanced at me. What? I kept my voice even. What clinic did Elena go to? His face changed by maybe 1 inch, but I saw it. What? The clinic, I repeated. The one you said she went to on Thursday. He blinked once. Then he named a women's health center across town. I nodded. Who was the doctor? His mouth opened. Half a second passed. Too long. I don't remember, he said. That was enough. I placed my phone on the coffee table, screen open to the screenshots. Do you want to try that answer again? He looked down. For 2 seconds, his face went blank. Then not guilty. Not shocked. Annoyed. So you went through my phone. That was his first move. Not denial. Attack. I leaned back slightly. I saw Morgan's message preview. The rest was already there. That's private. So was the fake pregnancy, I said. His jaw tightened. It was a joke. Which part? The baby scare thing. Morgan has a dark sense of humor. I stared at him. Why were the flights booked the night after you told me Elena was pregnant? He looked away, and then I watched him change tactics. He sighed like I was exhausting him. I panicked, he said. Okay, I didn't know what to do. You panicked and booked Miami? I was stressed, Zara. I waited. He kept going. I felt trapped. I felt like everything was closing in, and honestly, I needed a break. I let him talk. That was always the thing with Marcus. If you left enough silence, he filled it. He would build the rope himself if you didn't interrupt. He said he wasn't sure what Elena wanted. Then he said maybe Elena had exaggerated. Then he said Morgan made the booking. Then he said he deserved one weekend where he didn't feel judged. When the excuses finally ran out, I asked one question. Was Elena ever pregnant? He stared at me. For the first time, the room went completely still. Then he said, no. No tears. No apology. Just no. I felt something inside me close. You lied to me. I was late on bills, he said quickly, and I knew you'd help if it sounded serious. If it sounded serious. The words landed like glass. He leaned forward, suddenly irritated again. You make more than me, Zara. It's not like $900 ruined you. That was when the relationship ended in my head. Not the lie. Not even the fake pregnancy. It was the casual math of my value to him. I was not his partner. I was not the woman he loved. I was a resource. A stable address. A bank account with a heartbeat. I stood up. You have 24 hours to pack your things and leave. He laughed immediately. Sharp. Disbelieving. You can't just kick me out. Yes, I can. I live here. The lease is in my name. I pay rent. You pay me, I said, not the landlord. His expression hardened. That's cold. No, I said. Cold is inventing a pregnancy with your ex-girlfriend, so your girlfriend will fund your beach trip. That finally hit somewhere. Not enough for regret. Enough for fear. His voice dropped. Zara, come on. No. It was stupid. It was calculated. I paid you back in other ways. The sentence hung there. I looked at him. He seemed to realize how ugly it sounded only after he said it. I didn't argue. I didn't need to. I repeated. 24 hours. Keys on the counter by tomorrow evening. That was when he finally got emotional. Not because he had hurt me, because the apartment, the routine, the stability, all of it, was suddenly disappearing. He stood up, pacing now. You're seriously ending this over money? No, I said. I'm ending this because you lied about a pregnancy. The money is just the receipt. His face twisted. You're acting like I cheated. I almost smiled, but there was no humor in it. I would have preferred cheating. That shut him up. Only for a second. Then he tried softness. He stepped closer. Zara, he said, lowering his voice. We've been together 2 years. I know. You don't just throw that away. I didn't. His eyes searched my face like he was looking for the weak spot he always used before. The part of me that planned around his chaos. The part that absorbed emotional mess and called it love. But it wasn't there anymore. Or maybe it was. Maybe it was just finally facing the right direction. He reached for my hand. I moved back. His expression flickered. That was the moment he understood I wasn't bluffing. And once Marcus understood that charm wasn't working, panic took over. The shift was immediate. Not subtle, not layered, just raw survival. Where am I supposed to go? Marcus asked, his voice tightening in a way that had nothing to do with guilt and everything to do with inconvenience. I didn't raise my voice. You have friends, I said. The same ones you're flying to Miami with. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Their places are small. That sounds like something you should have considered. My parents will lose it if I move back in. I held his gaze. That also sounds like something you should have considered. His jaw clenched. For a second, irritation replaced panic. You're ruining my life over a mistake. There it was again. A mistake. Like this had been a wrong turn, a miscalculation, something accidental. No, I said quietly. You made a decision. This is the outcome. He stared at me like he was waiting for something softer to follow. It didn't. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he changed again. The volume dropped. His shoulders lowered. His voice softened. Zara, I didn't think it would go this far. I watched him carefully. That was the closest thing to honesty he had offered. You didn't think I'd find out, I said. His eyes flickered. A pause. Then, I didn't think it would matter this much. That was worse. I nodded once. That's the problem. He stepped closer, closing the space between us like he'd done 100 times before. Familiar, confident, practiced. Look, he said, gentler now. I'll cancel the trip. I didn't respond. I'll pay you back, he added quickly. Not even eventually. I can transfer it today. Still nothing. We can reset, he said. Couples go through worse than this. I tilted my head slightly. Do they? It's not like I cheated. That again. I let out a quiet breath. This wasn't a rough patch, Marcus, I said. This was fraud, with eye contact. He frowned like I was exaggerating. You're being dramatic. No, I said. I'm being precise. That seemed to irritate him more than anything else. Because precision doesn't leave room for manipulation. He tried one more shift. He stepped even closer, placing his hands lightly against my arms, his voice dropping into something almost intimate. You don't want to do this, he said softly. We're good together. For a split second, something inside me reacted. Not doubt, memory. 2 years of routine. Familiar laughter, shared space, the quiet comfort of someone existing in your life without friction. But then another memory followed. Morgan's message. Guess the baby scare worked out in your favor. I stepped back. No, I said. I thought we were. His hands dropped. That was the last normal moment between us. The rest of the night unfolded exactly how I expected. He didn't sleep. I know that because I didn't either. Around midnight, I heard his voice in the living room. Low, sharp, whispering into his phone. Probably Morgan. Probably trying to build a backup plan that didn't involve accountability. At 2 a.m., he knocked on the bedroom door. Zara, he said through the wood. Can we talk? I didn't answer. Silence stretched for a few seconds. Then footsteps. Then nothing. At 7:30 the next morning, I got up, showered, and got dressed for work like it was any other Friday. Routine. Structure. Control. When I walked into the kitchen, Marcus was sitting at the table scrolling through his phone. His eyes were red, not from crying. From not sleeping. He looked up at me. You're really going through with this? Yes. He stared at me for a long second. At least give me a week. No. I need time to figure things out. You should have figured that out before you invented a pregnancy. His mouth tightened. I grabbed my bag. You have until this evening, I said. Keys on the counter. Then I left. Around noon, the messages started. First, anger. You're heartless. Then guilt. I would never do this to you. Then bargaining. If I send the money back today, can we just reset? That one almost made me laugh. Reset. Like this was a system glitch. At 3 p.m., my phone buzzed again. A screenshot. $900 transferred. Memo line, refund. Followed by a message. There, happy now? I stared at it for a second, then replied with one sentence. Bring the keys when you're done packing. He called immediately. I let it ring. Then again, and again. I didn't answer. At 5:45 p.m., I pulled into the parking lot. His car was still there. When I opened the door, the difference was immediate. Half his clothes were gone. The closet looked uneven. The bathroom counter was cleared of his things. But he was still there, sitting on the couch, waiting. The keys were on the coffee table. He stood when I walked in. You're making a mistake, he said. Maybe, I replied, but it's mine to make. He grabbed his bag, slinging it over his shoulder. For a second, it looked like he might say something else. Apologize. Explain. Anything. But he didn't. He just walked toward the door. Halfway there, he stopped. You're going to regret this, he said, when you calm down. I looked at him, and for the first time, I realized something I hadn't fully put into words yet. I am calm, I said. He didn't have a response for that. The door closed behind him. And just like that, it was over. For the first time in 8 months, the apartment felt quiet. Not tense. Not heavy. Just quiet. Clean. Like a system resetting itself back to default. For a week, nothing happened. No calls, no messages, no surprise visits. Saturday morning, I changed the locks. Not out of fear. Procedure. He had given the keys back, but I wasn't relying on trust as a system anymore. I thought that was the end of it. Then Miami happened. I didn't have to ask. He posted everything. Beach photos, poolside drinks, group selfies with captions about living his best life and healing energy. There was even a picture of him holding a cocktail with the ocean behind him. The same week, he told me his ex-girlfriend was cramping and emotionally drained. I didn't like the posts. Didn't comment. Didn't engage. But other people did, and that's when the narrative started shifting. Because Marcus didn't tell the truth. He told a version. According to him, we broke up because I invaded his privacy and overreacted during a stressful time. He left out the part where he fabricated a pregnancy. Convenient. 2 of our mutual friends reached out. What happened? I didn't explain. I sent the screenshots. No commentary. No emotion. Just facts. Both of them responded the same way. That's insane. One of them even apologized. Not for anything specific, just for not seeing it sooner. 3 weeks after he moved out, Marcus texted me. Hey, I didn't respond. 2 hours later, can we talk? Nothing. The next morning, I've been thinking a lot. I opened that one. Didn't reply. Then another message. I made a mistake. I panicked. I didn't think you'd actually end things. That sentence told me everything. He never calculated this outcome. He thought there would be an argument, a cooling off period, a negotiation, not a clean break, not silence, not consequences. I didn't reply. Instead, I went into my phone settings and blocked his number, then Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, even LinkedIn. Clean, no announcement, no speech, no final message. Just access revoked. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Declined. Then again, declined. Voicemail notification. Deleted. Without listening, because at that point, whatever he had to say was no longer relevant to my life. Blocking him should have been the end of it. It wasn't. About a week after I cut off contact, I got a message from Morgan. I almost ignored it. Her name alone was enough to bring back that exact moment. Standing in my bedroom, staring at Marcus's phone, watching everything rearrange itself. But curiosity has a way of slipping past discipline. So I opened it. She's not doing well. Can you at least talk to her? I stared at the message longer than I expected. Not doing well. That phrasing felt selective. How? I replied. Morgan responded almost immediately. She's embarrassed. She didn't think you'd go this far. That word again. Far. As if I had escalated something. As if I had turned a small issue into a catastrophe. I typed slowly. She lied about a pregnancy to get money from me. What part of that suggests I should re-engage? There was a longer pause this time. Then, she feels like she ruined her future. I read that twice. Then once more. Not because it was complicated, because it was consistent. Everything, even now, was still centered around how she felt. Not what she did. Not the weight of it. Just the consequences she was experiencing. She made that choice, I replied. Then I blocked Morgan too. Because there's a point where continued conversation isn't empathy. It's permission. A few days later, Marcus tried again. This time through email. Subject line, I miss us. I opened it. It was longer than I expected. More structured, more intentional. He admitted he handled things wrong. Said he was insecure. Said he panicked because he felt behind compared to his friends. Said Miami was a mistake. Said he hated that I saw him as a villain now. I read the entire thing once. Then again. Not because I was considering it. Because I wanted to be sure. He never said he understood what he had done. Not really. He never acknowledged the calculation behind it. Never said, I used something serious to manipulate you. It was all framed differently. I thought. I didn't realize. The final paragraph was the part that made me pause. I'll move back in and prove I can be better. Move back in. As if this had been a pause, a timeout, not an ending. I actually laughed. Not loudly. Just once. Short. Clean. Then I marked the email as spam and moved on. 2 months passed. No contact, no disruptions, and nothing collapsed. That's the part people don't talk about enough. When something unstable leaves your life, things don't fall apart. They stabilize. I went to work. I went to the gym more consistently. I restructured my finances. What used to cover groceries for 2 went straight into savings. I paid off my car earlier than planned. My routines tightened. My space stayed clean. My mind stayed quiet. No second guessing. No emotional noise. Just clarity. Then one Saturday afternoon, there was a knock on my door. I already knew. I opened it. Marcus stood there. No luggage, no tears. Just jeans, a sweater, and that same familiar posture. Like this was a conversation, not a consequence. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. You blocked me everywhere, he said immediately. Yes. No explanation. No apology. Just a complaint. I wanted to talk face to face, he continued. You owe me that after 2 years. I don't owe you access, I said. He inhaled slowly, then shifted. Softer, more controlled. I've been in therapy, he said. I've had time to think. I didn't interrupt. I sabotaged something stable, he went on. I see that now. Miami was a mistake. Those people, they're not real friends. His voice carried just enough regret to sound believable. Almost. I see now that you were the only one who actually had my back. I let him finish. Then I asked one question. If I hadn't seen that message from Morgan, would you have ever told me the truth? He didn't answer immediately. His eyes dropped. Then lifted again. Probably not. That was it. No hesitation. No attempt to soften it. Just the truth. And somehow, that made everything even clearer. I hope therapy helps, I said. And I meant it. I really do. His expression shifted from hopeful to irritated. You're really that unforgiving? He asked. I shook my head slightly. No, I said, I'm just not that desperate. Silence. 10 seconds, maybe. Then he nodded once. Not in agreement, in realization. He turned and walked back to his car. No scene, no yelling, no last attempt. Just the quiet understanding that the door was actually closed. That was 3 months ago. He hasn't come back since. No messages, no calls. No mutual friends trying to negotiate on his behalf. From what I've heard, he's back living with his parents. The Miami group didn't last either. Apparently, when you build friendships on convenience and drama, they don't hold up well under pressure. Here's the part that might sound cold. I don't hate him. I don't wish anything bad on him. What I feel is something simpler than that. Clarity. When someone lies about cheating, that's betrayal. When someone lies about money, that's selfish. But when someone lies about something like a pregnancy, something serious, something that carries weight, and uses it as leverage, that's not a mistake. That's a decision. People have asked me if I regret giving him the $900. I don't. Because that money bought me something more valuable than anything I could have spent it on. It showed me exactly who he was. Before I signed another lease. Before I tied my life to his legally. Before I ignored something bigger, $900 is cheap compared to a divorce. He came back because the stability he dismissed became valuable once it was gone. But I'm not a safety net. I'm not an ATM. And I'm not someone who stays after being turned into a strategy. The apartment is quiet now. The bills are predictable. And there's no part of me waiting for something to go wrong. If there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's simple. When someone shows you they're willing to weaponize something serious for convenience, believe them the first time. You don't argue. You don't negotiate. You just walk away.